The flight was supposed to be routine, just another business trip for Eleanor Hayes, the youngest CEO in her company's history, known for her steel composure and untouchable poise. But when exhaustion finally won over pride, and her head drifted onto a stranger's shoulder midair, she had no idea that one simple, human moment would unravel everything she thought she knew about control, connection, and what truly mattered. By the time the plane landed, she wasn't the same woman who had boarded it, and neither was he. Eleanor Hayes had built walls so high even she couldn't see beyond them anymore. Every hour of her day was accounted for: meetings, numbers, deadlines. She'd earned her success, clawed her way to it, really, but somewhere between ambition and loneliness, she'd forgotten what it meant to just be. Her assistant had begged her to rest before the flight, but she brushed it off. There was no time for rest when a multi-million-dollar merger waited across the ocean. So when she boarded the plane, her mind was still on spreadsheets, projections, and the endless hum of responsibility. Her seat was by the window, first class, of course, and she was relieved for a moment of silence. But then a man slid into the seat beside her, juggling a small stuffed dinosaur, a tablet, and a cup of juice like his life depended on it. Behind him, a flight attendant guided a little girl to sit beside him, about 6, with a tangle of chestnut hair and eyes far too curious for her age. "Sorry," he said with a flustered smile, balancing the chaos in his arms. "Single dad life." Eleanor just nodded politely, offering a practiced smile. She had no space in her life for small talk, let alone stories about strangers. But the little girl turned to her, beaming. "Hi. I'm Lila. We're going to see my grandma. Daddy says she makes the best pancakes in the world. Do you like pancakes?" Eleanor blinked. No one had asked her something so simple in years. "I suppose I do," she said. "Good," Lila grinned. "Then you're already our friend." Her father groaned softly. "Lila, not everyone you meet on a plane becomes your friend." "But she looks lonely," Lila whispered loudly, as only children can. Eleanor turned toward the window, pretending to be fascinated by clouds. But somehow, the child's words stuck like a splinter in her chest. Hours passed. The plane hummed, the lights dimmed, and somewhere between business memos and exhaustion, Eleanor's body gave out. Her head drooped, and before she knew it, she had fallen asleep on the stranger's shoulder. She didn't know how long she stayed like that. But when she woke, her cheek was pressed against a warmth that wasn't a pillow. Her eyes snapped open. The man, tall, kind-eyed, worn in the way life wears people who love deeply, looked down with a gentle smile. "Didn't want to wake you," he said softly. "You looked like you needed it." For once, Eleanor had no sharp reply ready. The little girl giggled from her seat. "See, Daddy? You made a friend too." Eleanor's face flushed, but she smiled, really smiled, for the first time in a long while. As the flight went on, the three of them talked. She learned his name was Daniel, that he'd lost his wife 2 years ago, and that being a single dad wasn't something he planned, but something he embraced because love didn't give him a choice. Lila adored drawing dinosaurs, and thought her dad was the bravest person alive. Eleanor found herself laughing, not polite boardroom laughter, but real, unrestrained joy. She told Daniel about her work, her drive, the loneliness behind it all. And he listened, really listened, in a way no one ever had. When turbulence hit, she clutched the armrest, and he reached over, steadying her hand without hesitation. It wasn't romantic in that moment, it was something simpler, truer. It was trust. By the time the plane began its descent, something in her had shifted. She looked at Daniel and Lila, this messy, imperfect pair, and felt a longing she didn't recognize. Not envy. Not desire. But a quiet ache for something she'd forgotten was possible, belonging. As the plane touched down, Daniel smiled. "It was nice meeting you, Eleanor Hayes, CEO of Hayes Innovations." She raised an eyebrow. "You knew who I was?" He chuckled. "Lila pointed at your magazine cover while we were boarding. Said, 'Daddy, she looks lonely but pretty.'" Her breath caught, Lila yawned, resting her head on her father's arm. Bye, Miss Eleanor. Don't work too hard, okay? Eleanor promised she'd try. She didn't know it yet, but she meant it. Days later, back in her glass-walled office overlooking the city, Eleanor couldn't stop thinking about that flight. About the quiet peace of Daniel's shoulder, the honesty in his eyes, the way Lila's laughter had filled the stale airplane air with life. She found herself reaching for her phone more than once, and stopping, pride and uncertainty warring inside her, until one rainy evening, a message popped up on her business email. Subject: You left this on the plane. From Daniel Carter. Attached was a photo, the small silver pen she always carried, engraved with her initials, resting beside a half-drawn dinosaur doodle. He wrote, Lila says we should return it in person. She also says you owe her pancakes. For the first time in years, Eleanor shut her laptop early. When she showed up at the little family cafe where they waited, Lila ran to her with open arms. Daniel looked up, surprised but smiling, and in that simple, quiet moment, soaked in coffee aroma and laughter, Eleanor Hayes realized something she'd never learned from success. Sometimes, life doesn't need to be perfectly planned to be perfectly meaningful, because sometimes, what changes you forever isn't the deal you close, it's the shoulder you accidentally fall asleep on, and the kindness that catches you when your walls finally fall.